So what we're about to watch is my favorite studio performance ever. It is Radiohead doing Weird Fishes, one of my favorite songs. In fact, the reason I own this microphone is because of the video we're about to watch, and I'm gonna react to it. And I'm gonna try using my ears and whatever I see on the screen to figure out at least some semblance of what's going on that makes this video so great. And then I'm gonna try and recreate it to the best of my ability using a bedroom studio and using more affordable gear. I can't promise the most affordable gear. I will use whatever sounds the best, but it will definitely be more affordable than their gear. We're gonna talk about the drums first, and then we'll move on to the guitars. So what I always notice about the drums, they are incredibly clean and incredibly dry. And it almost feels like they shouldn't be. And the reason it confuses me is if we look at the microphones that they're using on this kit, we're seeing a stereo pair of Coles 4038s, some of my favorite microphones on the planet. They're ribbon microphones, they're pretty dark and mellow, but also importantly, ribbon microphones work in what we call a figure-8 polar pattern. That means you're getting what's in front of the microphone, but the nature of a ribbon, you're also getting what's behind the microphone, meaning these Coles right here and right here, they're recording what's above them as well. So you might get a lot of bleed from that. Not only that, but it looks like we have a mono overhead, a Telefunken U47 or a Neumann U47. And then we also have condensers on the toms, which means a lot of what's being picked up in this drum sound, I would imagine, is bleeding into each other. Looks like there might be an SM57 here. I like how on his gear list, he just says unknown microphone on his list. And the drum tone is definitely really dry on purpose. So that's definitely something to try and aim for, as dry of a tone as possible whenever we're doing this in our bedroom. One thing I love about the guitars here, you have to remember there are 3 guitars. They're quite wide and they're encompassing a large portion of the mix. And because the drums are kind of subdued and a little bit tighter, they really make this huge stereo image that allows you to kind of swim around in it. And on top of that, all of the guitars are in 3/4 and the drums are in 4/4. So you can imagine, not only do we have a 4/4 drum part, we have a 3/4 guitar part, and all of those guitars venture off into their own chords and reconnect after a different amount of measures. So all of these instruments are kind of going on these separate but connected journeys on different parts of the stereo image as well. So I suppose whenever we're trying to emulate this, what we're really going to be trying to do is kind of vary the different tones that we're getting along the stereo image. I might use this guitar in a kind of a darker, more subdued tone. We'll have that on one side. We're going to use a different guitar. I think Ed uses a lot of hollow bodies. I might try and use my hollow body and maybe my other Strat for Johnny's part. So one thing I want to point out with the guitars here, I think they're all using Vox AC30s. You'll notice that the guitars are primarily mic'd with U67s or U87s. U67, U87, obviously legendary microphones. It looks like it's a 2x12, meaning there are 2 12-inch speakers inside of there, and they're placing the microphone pretty much dead in the center of the cone. If you've watched my SM57 recording guitar video, you know that's definitely the brightest option, and it is very close mic'd. At least on this Vox, it looks like they're getting the most amount of sort of harmonic information from it possible. Weird fishes. Here we go. That vocal is just insane, man. That is definitely an artificial reverb, so we will do the same. Let me tell you why I love this choice of microphone, the RE20, for this occasion. Look at Tom right now. Tom is right on top of the microphone. He's kind of eating it like this. And the really great thing about this microphone, especially in a circumstance like this, is an RE20 is designed to not have a big proximity effect. What that means is if I get closer to the microphone, you'll notice it gets deeper, louder, and a lot more low end. If I would have done that into a different microphone, like an SM57 SM57, it would have been a lot more intense because this microphone is designed to eliminate some of that proximity effect. So when Tom decides to do something like that, grab the microphone, it's not going to be quite as extreme, and it keeps that consistency even when Tom is kind of doing his Tom York thing and moving around and varying his distance from the microphone or completely eating it like this. God, man. It's just unfair. Right. We got our work cut out for us, for sure. So we're gonna record drums first in a buddy of mine's studio. This is Michael. Be sure to DM him if you need any help with any production projects, especially drums. He's also starting his own YouTube channel, so go give him some love. And then we will add on to that in the spirit of this production. Let's get going. All right, it is a long time since I recorded that last part of the video and everything is done. And hey, if you made it this far, consider subscribing because clearly you care a little bit about this. And this is where the fun begins. I literally never ask anyone to do this, but I'm proud of this video, and when people subscribe, it helps the video, so thank you. And I'm gonna have some cheaper alternatives to these microphones appear on the screen if you can't afford or don't have this nice of gear. Okay, so let's start with drums. Okay, so let me explain to you a little bit about like what's going on here. Michael has all of these diffusion and absorption panels all around the room, so it is very dry, which is great because this drum tone is incredibly dry as well. We also have a sound blanket here right behind the cymbal. We have another sound blanket, and then we have one covering the window. Here's the bed. As promised, it's a bedroom. We used an AKG C414 and an OC818 as our stereo overheads. So those are replacing the Coles 4038. And it's not really true to the tone of the 4038s, but importantly here, we were able to mimic that figure 8 pattern using those microphones. And with some EQ adjustments, we were able to match it pretty well. We placed a Lauten Clarion in the middle of the stereo mix, right where that U47 was in their original video. It's facing down towards the snare, and the Clarion will give us that kind of Neumann-esque kind of smooth, darker mid-range tone. One interesting thing about the overheads is they're really close. We noticed they were less than a foot away from the cymbals, so we made sure to mimic that as well. And that might have led to the more intimate tone, and that also might have led to a more full snare because they're definitely capturing a lot of snare. Now, we found out one of the reasons why the drums sound as dry as they do. It's likely because, well, they didn't actually play toms on the song, so we just cut that out of the mix. That sounded much more faithful to the original recording, so I would assume that's kind of what they did too. Check it out for yourself. Next, we stuffed a bunch of fabric and mattress padding inside of the kick drum. That gave us a nice dead thump rather than a rounder, more resonant tone. It was really tight, and it actually took the compression really well. Actually, if this video does well enough and you would like to see, I'm happy to do a part 2 where we break down the mixing process as well. So get subscribed, like it, share it, all the things that will help this video if you'd like to see that. Next was the SM57, and that actually, even though it's a pretty standard snare mic, we made sure to make the positions of these microphones pretty exact to what they were in the video. So it's a pretty interesting position for the SM57. It's more facing the rim of the snare than the center of the snare. Next is the bass. The bass, absolutely nothing fancy. We do what most people do when they're working in a home studio and just DI the bass. It looks like maybe Colin was playing through a compressor, an outboard compressor or something like that, but it's hard to tell based on the footage. So just DI for me, which is the only thing a home studio guitarist knows how to do with a bass. Next are the guitars. As mentioned earlier, the guitars were mic'd with a Neumann U67 or a U87, it's hard to tell. And the mic position is actually pretty peculiar to me. Whenever I'm using a condenser to mic a guitar amp, I usually put them a little bit farther away than I would a dynamic, and then I put the dynamics right up to the grill, but we're matching the positions that they used in the video. So I made sure to place my Lauten Clarion, which is the closest microphone I have to the U67 tone. I made sure to put that only a couple inches off and then pointing down towards the floor at a similar angle that they had in the video. Let me talk for a moment about recording guitar though, because it was a lot. It was very hard. As mentioned, the track is in 4/4 on drums and 3/4 on guitar, and the timing is very unintuitive. This was really hard for me to get the hang of, especially in the bridge where the drums completely drop out. But watch any breakdown on the internet and you'll learn this. This is about production. So how does that translate to production? Well, guess what? When you're a bedroom musician, your guitars are not set up as well as Radiohead's. Okay, it is day 2 of recording guitars, And the biggest struggle and the biggest frustration I've been dealing with is guitar intonation. Despite my best efforts, I would consistently be out of tune with myself because all of these instruments are intonated slightly differently. That basically means that they go out of tune at different intervals higher up the neck. Even though a guitar might be perfectly in tune at the nut, at the very top of the neck, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in tune at like the 12th fret. So this was knocking the harmony parts of this track off tune, if just a little bit slightly, just a couple cents, but it was noticeable to me, and it was probably noticeable to, you know, your average audio engineer. I even tried detuning the guitars off by a couple cents, thinking that up higher on the neck they would be in tune. And this helped, but not all the way. So 50 takes in and 3 frustrating days later, we decided to basically tune and pitch the problematic notes inside of Ableton. Would the average listener have ever known? Probably not, but I like to think subconsciously it makes a difference. Vocals were actually really simple. We used an RE20 and we placed it near the middle of the room, slightly off axis from center. Also hit up Ethan if you'd like any help with any production projects, and he also has his own channel, so go check it out. I have this video talking about how you can set up pretty decent vocals in an untreated room. I just followed my own guide there. And Ethan knocked it out of the park in a couple takes, so did Michael, actually. It was me that did a ton of takes. And with that said, let's check out the performance.
headache right now. Don't know why. I'm gonna drink some more water.
Okay, so this video is a big jump for me in content style, and it's a big risk. So if you liked it, please subscribe, please like it, share it if you can, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully, another one of these. So watch it and share it so I can do more of this. Goodbye.